So this is an interesting one. Oh, wait, that screen just bugged out. Okay, that's not what I've seen before. Type in my password again. Yeah, that's a little bit strange. But yeah, this going to be an interesting recording thing. Basically, I find that when I'm doing most things on the computer, honestly, I have a tendency, well, especially on chairs that move, I have a tendency to end up moving backwards on them and moving like slipping down the chair a little bit. So I've gone to my suitcase. I've gotten the strap. I've gotten the strap that I put around the outside of that because the lock on the suitcase is broken. And I've tied myself to my chair. When I say I've tied myself to my chair, specifically my issue is that my lower back, I tend to find it quite hard to like have, because of how the chair is. I tend to find that the more support I give the lower back, the more tendency I have to be uncomfortable elsewhere, and that's just to do with how my like if I want to, just based on the height of the chair, where the screen is, where my legs are, they'll end up kind of just pushing the chair backwards if I try and, like, I don't know, get them in a place that feels comfortable. And it all just contributes to me having worse posture whilst I sit. So this is now basically just around my waist. It's just holding me in place. Yeah. So, alright. Interesting discussion I had the other day with the supervisor for my project. And basically, the discussion was instruments. Because I play the trumpet, and he plays the guitar. And we were discussing using instruments to kind of wind down, whatever, to de-stress. And we've both kind of had the same thing with our instruments, which is we used to play them, we used to be quite good at them, and then real life kind of came along with him starting his PhD, me A-level and university, which concerns me, I guess, for my PhD. But that is assuming I go for one, but I think that's a reasonably likely thing. I will try and go for a PhD. But yeah, we both had kind of given up on an instrument. We're discussing how, again, from time to time, we both will play it now, but it's harder. And it's, I don't know, this is less of an interesting, of like a surprising topic or anything like that, but it's something I found interesting because I didn't realise at the point where I kind of played the trumpet less and less that this was where it was going to lead. And basically, and well, there is a good point to this as well that comes out of all of this, but basically what happened for me was, over exams in A-level, I didn't play trumpet very much, and when the holidays were on, I was doing physics, etc. I was doing other stuff. I didn't spend too much time playing trumpet then either. And it really, as one would expect from a period of not having practiced, I got worse. The interesting thing was I couldn't pick it back up again. And like, it was like I would be putting in a few days to kind of, like, normally I would expect to have gotten worse in certain ways, like, for trumpet, it's all about your lips. And one of the kind of standard ways I would expect to have gotten worse, I would expect my endurance to have gone down. My lips would get tired sooner and sooner and sooner, because it's all about maintaining like positions with your lips and maintaining their strength. And that would have gone down, and I kind of expect that to some extent. What I didn't expect was the fact that I'd lost, to a large extent, my technique. I'd lost my embouchure. Which is what it's known as. It's like the kind of way you hold your mouth onto the trumpet. Deal you with the intro there. When's that been a thing from? That's got to be quite recent, I swear. Oh, I'm just getting up the changelog. Oh, it was. It was from the same stream the other day that another update during which another update occurred. I don't remember what that update was, but it also coincided with the quick build clip being fixed. Because yes, for those of you who don't know, it turned out that was not live accurate. It's very sad. But fortunately, I have live accurate out of bounds for almost. Like I worked out live accurate out of bounds for almost everywhere else nearly instantly. So. That's the main reason I'm quite concerned about the spring jump being patched. Because currently, or not being patched, but turning out that it's not live accurate. Because currently most of my things rely on the spring jump. It'd be a bit of a shame from my perspective if all of these new clips that I've worked out now don't work as well. Including the Nexus Tower out of bounds that I still haven't managed to pull off yet. It's doable, I'm just not good enough for the moment. Now let's head down here for a change. Don't do this very often. The reason I don't do this very often was because in my early runs I died here multiple times. But I'm more confident in my abilities now. Why aren't you targeting me? Okay. Why are you targeting me? It's mean. Don't target me. Quickly. Not quite quickly enough. But the real reason I'm here, so I don't have to stop back here and get that later on. Come on, really auto-aim? But on the upside, small thing there, but I wouldn't have done that earlier on. I did dodge that Stromling's attack. Like, I do note I am actually somewhat getting better at this. Because I knew auto-aim wasn't going to work there, and so I did step backwards once auto-aim had failed sufficiently. But yeah, so the thing with the trumpet was, yeah, I got back and was like, I'd assumed I'd be able to pick it up again relatively quickly. And like, I used to love playing the trumpet, but I had not had much time for it. And there were pieces I used to really, really love playing. So one of my favourites, Jurassic Park. Utter classic. Not for the famous not for that bit or anything, but although that's also good, but for the best part of Jurassic Park, the entire best part, which is you've got the trombones, bum 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 bum, and then trumpets come in. Bum. Oh, wait, what note am I going to start on? Bum 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 ba ba da ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da ba ba da bum. I obviously have not done that justice, but that hit, I think that's the Welcome to the Park theme. It might not be, I might be entirely misremembering, but that hit is such a good hit. And it is one of my favourite things to play on the trumpet, all-time favourite things to play. The only issue is, on trumpet, one of your restrictions, one of the things that makes pieces difficult on the trumpet is pitch. It gets harder to play a piece the higher it gets, basically. And yeah, I'm used to this. My range is normally, or was normally, more than good enough to make those pitches. To get high enough, Yeah, that was something I could do quite easily. We'll just compare coins. Well, actually, let's sell the hat and see if things are any better. Let's do that. Yes, they are. Nice. But yeah, it was... That was where the problem came in. Not just the fact that I couldn't play Jurassic Park, but what had happened was... Like, the pit... I was not playing trumpet very well at all, and I was barely hitting the low notes, let alone the high notes. Now, it turns out, what I didn't realise at the time, which I've kind of found out now, is that actually what had strangely happened was my ability to kind of hit low notes nicely, that had gotten worse. Actually, ironically, my ability to hit high notes hadn't gone much worse, but although my endurance had gone down, as I mentioned it would have done. This is bad. Let's not die here. I think I should be safe, yeah. Only just about. If that guy runs towards me, I'm... Yep, okay. Oh, I definitely could not have done that safely. Wow, that was... I'm actually gonna... There we are. Wait for that to regen. Wow, and the turret didn't even smash anything. I'm not certain if that was just a finisher or whatever. I think I must not have done. But yeah, and I suddenly found myself unable to play this piece and other places that I loved. And what was really, really interesting was at this point, it became so hard to play the trumpet. Not because it was painful or not because my endurance was bad and I couldn't play for long periods of time. I mean, it was, but that wasn't what was making it difficult. What was making it difficult was simply motivating myself. Because I'd sit down and play a trumpet and I'd be like... The thing that I loved doing that got me good at the trumpet kind of in the first place, working towards these things, I was sitting, looking at them, and just being like, I should be able to play this. I can't play this. Because my mind was still in that position of, I'm a good trumpet player who can play these things. And every time I failed to, I was letting myself down. It wasn't a case of how it had been when I was learning, which is, oh, I'm working towards this thing. It was a case of, wait, I did this thing yesterday, why can't I do it today? When I obviously hadn't done it yesterday. But that was still where my mind was, and it made it so much more difficult to pick it up. To pick up the trumpet and say, okay, I'm going to play today, when the one thing I wanted to play, I couldn't. And I'm exaggerating somewhat, but the stuff that I would play and the stuff that I would normally have played, none of it I could play because suddenly I wasn't really good enough to do it anymore. And this was a similar story, although obviously not as much in depth, that my supervisor was telling me. He was saying, yeah, that happened to him with the guitar. It's kind of... And there are other effects going on as well. So, for instance, I'm currently in shared accommodation. Shared accommodation is in dormitories, not like a shared... I feel shared accommodation is a phrase I have heard in contexts which weren't dormitories and like it has a specific meaning. But yeah, I'm in... No, I think shared accommodation, no, that is the way. Yeah, I'm in basically like a dorm room. There are other people in this building with me, and not only do I not want to play and like keep them awake at night, which is why I don't tend to play when I get home from work, but on top of that, I don't want to play and be that one person who can't play. It's like no one wants to be that person, and I know that whilst I'm practicing to get better, I'm going to be that person for a good period of time. And I'm normally used to being capable enough that at least when I muck something up, it sounds challenging enough that it's like, okay, the people are like, okay, well, it makes sense he mugged that up. That sounds really difficult. Whereas now, if I'm playing something and I muck it up, it's not going to be hard. And I kind of got saved by two things. One of them noticing that actually there were a couple of pieces I could still play. And oddly enough, that whilst high notes are typically harder on the trumpet, for some reason, in certain contexts, there were certain times I could play high notes really well. And I think actually I might have gotten a little bit better at hitting high notes because of this. Because of all the stuff I did. But yeah. And the second thing, which I found really interesting, and which is kind of why I bring this up, was jazz. Now, I've played jazz for a long time. Like my trumpet teacher at school was a great, really, really good jazz person. Like, he did a jazz band that was kind of, that had won awards, etc. So like, yeah, he was like very, very good trumpet player, and because of that, he ran our school's big band, and yeah, he was very good at what he did. And that meant that I'd been exposed to jazz. I spent a lot of time playing jazz. But one thing that had always terrified me, and this would not be an exaggeration to say, one thing that had terrified me for years was solos. And not specifically... Okay, I'm awful at solos. It's a really weird thing. I am more than happy to stand in front of a crowd of basically as many people as you want. Like, I don't really care. I'm more than happy to, like, give a talk in front of as many people as you like. That's fine. That doesn't scare me in the slightest. I'm more than happy playing loud and quite exposed trumpet parts in front of a group of people. Like ones where, like, an example would be the Jurassic Park theme, or either of the two themes from Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was described by a French horn-playing friend I had as something of a concerto for horn and trumpet, and I think at the very least the arrangement we had, that was the case, because it begins horn solo, amazing, like really, really melodic horn solo. And then very, very early on, you get the trumpets carrying on a particularly high and particularly challenging, well, not huge, challenging in terms of pitch at any rate, section carrying the main theme, the ba-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum, but really higher up and like kind of over the top of the rest of the orchestra. And yeah, doing all that, and then you get later on, you get more horn parts, and you get the amazing bum 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 ba ba da ba da da dum, and it's like, yeah, this is brilliant. I've really just gone distracted and just started talking about how much I like Jurassic Park. I don't remember what I was talking about before this. It's not good. Jurassic Park is a bop though. It's really good. Oh yeah, I was discussing exposed trumpet pieces, and like, if I mucked up on the bum 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 ba ba da ba da ba ba, like, people would hear it. It's pretty much only the trumpets in that section, or if there are other people playing, they're not audible because we are going high and loud because that's all we know how to do. And for anyone who recognises that meme, it's a good meme. It's a very, very niche meme. It's a meme only trumpet players will understand, but it's a good meme. Well, only trumpet players who have seen a particularly obscure video referencing trumpet players. But anyway, I digress. Which, in fairness, you should be used to by now. Oh, that's bad. I should have been dead there. But yeah, despite all of those things, I get quite serious stage fright whenever I have to play a trumpet solo. Don't know why. I don't know what it is about it being a solo that means I choke it so much compared to anything else. I guess I'm largely concerned about playing on my own when nobody else is. And that sounding completely wrong. I guess that was probably the thing I was most scared of, and that's something that I didn't have whenever I was playing in a group. I wasn't necessarily concerned about my ability so much as about my timing, and about the fact that I might come in at the wrong time, I might not have counted correctly, and I might start playing when I wasn't meant to, or something like that. Have they upped the number of things that spawn? Or have I just not done this for a while? I think I just haven't done this for a while. I should stop actually, because I can keep doing this more or less indefinitely. I'm going to get to Survivor if I can, I think. I can keep doing this more or less indefinitely, but I will like go through my health kits, which is sad and not something I really want to do. But yeah, so the one thing that scared me most of all, jazz improv. That terrifies me, because jazz is a genre, it's not something that I am necessarily the most comfortable knowing what notes go together to begin with. The jazz scale, or the blues scales are not something the jazz scale is not exactly correct, but yeah, blues scales are not the thing I'm most comfortable with. And trying to add lib in a key I'm not, or on a scale I'm not hugely comfortable with, that was terrifying. And you combine that with my fear of being able to, doing solos to begin with, that wasn't good. I wasn't good at doing solos. I was terrified of doing solos when it was a piece I knew well, and something I'd practiced 100 times. I mucked up on "Do you hear the people sing?" For heaven's sake. Like, I am bad at solos. Okay, I'm gonna let myself get smashed here. I'm also going to quickly check messages. Okay, I am going to be back in something of a second because I've got a relatively urgent message from a friend to which I need to reply. So yeah, see you in a sec. Alright, so where were we? The magic of editing. No, there was no gap whatsoever. Yeah, jazz. So I've recently, like, when I started kind of playing, I can't believe I'm gonna bring this as an example, but when I stopped playing the trumpet as much, I still wanted to do musical stuff, and it kind of coincided with, I guess I kind of supplemented that with two things that I was bad at, but it was all right to be bad at, because I wasn't meant to be good at them. I had no expectations of myself for doing them, and I was learning, I was playing them by ear. I'd never been taught to play either of them, so it's like, yeah, anything I can do is a miracle. Let's just, because I'm not that musically talented, so let's just take what I can get. And yeah, one of the things in particular on the melodica I found really fun was, hey, wait a second. There's also the piano actually would be the far better example of what I'm actually most confident playing somewhat jazzy stuff on. Because the melodica I've got to think and the melodica's slightly harder and a little bit weird when I have to pay more attention to things. I don't know why, but despite the fact it is basically the piano but with blowing, but I do find it harder. But yeah, so the thing I then got on to thinking about was, alright, and the thing that, yeah, I started doing, specifically on the piano, I began to realise, wait a second, I can actually, like, I've composed pieces in lots of other keys, like, come on, but it's kind of related. It's certainly the way I compose, because I'm no good at it. It's more or less just ad-libbing. I was like, well, let's just do this, but in a blues scale. And with some left hand with some kind of generic left hand backing, and it was like, oh, that actually kind of works. And so I decided, after my first conversation with my supervisor, you know what? I can't try, and I'm having difficulty trying to relearn to play the trumpet because it's something that I'm meant, in inverted commas, to be good at. What if I turn it from, and like I had expectations, what if instead I try and make this something entirely different? What if I try and do that one thing I was never able to do? Play the blues. Because let's just be clear, 90% of the time, what I played if I was trying to do a solo really did not mean a thing. It had... I'm trying to come up with a word I can use to describe swing other than swing. It's not of any triplet or dotted rhythms. You know what I know that doesn't actually mean swing per se. You know what I mean. If you know enough to criticize me on that, you know what I mean. And if not, just imagine I made a really good joke. But yeah, and that kind of worked. That got me to sit, and I had to swallow my pride and just accept I'm not going to play late, so I'm not going to disturb anyone, but God, I'm going to sound awful to anyone who may happen to be listening, but no, let's just swallow my pride, let's do that, because you know what, it will get me playing trumpet again, and that'll be worth it. And it did get me playing trumpet again. It got me, alongside that, I started playing one of the all-time classics from our big band at school, which was, it became a bit of a joke that the big band was always almost always we were low on people in some section, and so someone in some section was going to have to carry, was going to be like the first player in a particular section was going to be new. It was kind of inevitable. That was always going to be the case for one section at least, just because throughput, just because people are coming to the end of their time, and there are enough sections that normally there would be at least one section where that was the case at any moment in time. And so we kind of went back to a series of classics, including Mascanada, which I refuse to this day to accept has any words. To me it is ba 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 ba, except done a little bit better. Ba ba da da. Okay, I'm giving up any attempt at actually being good at singing because that was out of tune as heck. But for anyone who knows Mascanada, it does have words. It is not just ba ba da ba. Now I'm just doing this because it's a good piece, and now I've got it stuck in my head. But yeah, Mascanada, brilliant piece. We had our classics. We had Birdland, we had Mascanada. These pieces. There was one other that was truly classic that we played 100 times. Later on, the Chicken kind of joined in, which is just. It's a slightly different piece, but it's slightly different genre of piece, slightly different style of piece, but it is brilliant. It is a great tune. Again, because I feel obligated to do this, I'm going to attempt to sing it. It's not going to go well, but the beginning, you know it's the Chicken. There's sometimes a soul intro at the start, but when you really know it's the Chicken is when suddenly the bass line comes in and you get a bum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum bum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum. Wow, I'm actually insanely out of tune. That's quite impressive that one person can be so out of tune. Also missed that jump, which I'm a little bit disappointed in myself over. Actually, I'm not convinced I could even sing that. And then the main melody going ba-da-ba, Ba ba da ba 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 da ba da. Wa da ba da wa ba da. Wa da ba da ba da ba. 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 Ba da ba 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 da. Wow, okay, no, I am genuinely disappointed with myself for how, like, out of tune that, like, I'm not expecting myself to be a good singer, but these pieces were, like, a huge part of my life, and I have just genuinely butchered them because I wasn't, like, because I didn't know the notes well enough, it would appear. Like, they weren't, I don't know. For me, a large factor with determining whether or not I can sing something reasonably in tune is how well I know the notes, or like how well I can hear it in my head. Which flag have I missed? Did I miss the one behind the... Did I not get that one at the start? I'm fairly certain I just got all the monument flags. But I think I must have done, because I've gotten all the others, haven't I? Yeah. I must have missed out one of the two at the start. But yes, so we had the classics, but truly the most classic piece of them all. I think maybe one of the other ones was Easy Money, actually. But truly the most classic piece of them all was Birdland. And if I probably have sung this badly on the channel before, but tough. You're going to get it sung badly at you again. Because there was one moment, this is the... myself and a friend were... and our entire band, this is our wind band, though, not the jazz band, were playing at this event. And there was another nearby school. And I turned to my friend, and so each school would contribute to a different type of band. And I turned to my friend, and this school that was about to come on next was jazz band. I turned to my friend and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be hilarious if we just finish our set, or which we had? So if now we've just finished our set, they're up, and you just hear the bass player go, bum ba da dum bum ba dum ba dum bum." No, screw it, that's the chicken. No, I've mucked it up. No, how can I do this? How can I do this? It was the intro to the Birdland. Bum ba 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 da ba da da ba dum ba da. And you can tell actually that I know that piece better given how much more confident I was singing it, actually. But yeah. And then the second after it, it could actually be bass or trombones, I forget which it was, but one of them, whichever one I'd said, just hit that like a second after I finished saying it. It was just like, yes! Me and my friend were sitting there both cheering because he was a French horn player, but he knew Birdland. He'd sat in, he'd played trumpet. He was a good enough trumpet player. He was honestly, well, I would always just have described myself as a trumpet player, not a musician, or a good trumpet player, not a good musician. He was a good musician, and could also play the trumpet. Not quite as well, but pretty darn well, because French horn trumpet, lots of transferable skills. And yeah, so he knew the legend that was Birdland. But yeah, the whole thing was, this was kind of in favour of basically explaining, yes, how close Birdland is to my heart. And what I began to realise, and what happened was, wow, that was a waste of a health kit. But what happened is I sat down and was like, okay, what should I solo to? And I realised, wait a second, what thing can I solo to? Let's do a jazz piece I know, like, better than any other. And okay, it turns out this probably wasn't the best jazz piece to solo to, because, like, the chords aren't necessarily the easiest, they're not the most obvious. I found better things to solo to later on, or to ad lib to, but you know, it was a start. And what I realised as I started doing that is, wait a second, I've got it better than I remember. And you know what? I can now actually play Birdland, which was one of those pieces that was kind of just my feel-good piece, and was like, that was one of the things I was the saddest about being unable to play. Birdland, and basically just by setting myself that different challenge, where my expectations were so different, I'd gotten some ability back at the trumpet. And I didn't need... And it turns out that actually I wasn't as far off as I'd thought. I wasn't close to being able to play. It really had been way too long. It'd been ages since I played properly, and yeah, there was no way I was going to be good. But I did get better significantly faster than I expected, and the one thing I found was actually, you know what, my high notes are relatively strong. So all that's really left is for me to work on my low notes, which is a strange thing to have a problem with, but I guess I was always pretty good at the high notes, and what this had really done was I'd started trying to play again. I was like, well, I know I'm going to have difficulty playing the high notes, and I know I'm going to have difficulty getting a note out, so let's start with the low notes. But, ow, that was rude. But in practice, what was actually the case was, turns out I would have been fine playing. Okay, my endurance would have been off, but I would have been more or less fine. I'm actually kind of really fine with these spiderlings. You can see they're charging up to hit me at the end. But yeah, what had actually happened was, yeah, I turns out I was actually still reasonably competent. I still could have played. It would have taken me a little while, but you know what ended up happening? Well, so the trumpets, the higher up you go, the closer notes. Okay, trumpet. There are 3 valves. Each valve can either be up or down. That means that, well, at any moment in time, well, yeah, if you just go by the number of valves, the number of options for how many valves I have, surely I can only ever play a maximum of 8 notes. What happens is basically you put your lips closer together, buzz them at a different frequency, and that pushes you up an octave. And it's one of the reasons why trumpet playing is great for discussing harmonics and for learning about harmonics, because trumpet works. That's harmonics in physics, because trumpet works on the harmonic series. And that has a direct, there's a direct musical and physical analogy between those two. Which actually I'm appreciating more as I say this. Like the ways in which I could actually make that mathematically more rigorous. That's actually kind of quite fun. I hadn't really considered looking that closely at it before. But yeah. Yeah, so what was I talking about? Oh yeah, because the thing is, the higher you get on the trumpet, the more ways there are of playing a single note. So the 8 fingerings are enough to get you from a low F sharp to a C, or from a... These are kind of standard, they're arpeggio tones, but these are like the things you're most likely to play. They get you from a low F sharp to a C, and from a C to a G. Those are the main fingerings. And then from then on, you get overlap with the notes you can play. So from that point onwards, I can basically, there will be multiple fingerings for the same note. And actually, on the trumpet, it's not even a simple case of there are 8 possible things you can play at any moment in time, because there's actually overlap. The 3rd valve is the same as putting down the first 2 at once. It gives you the same extra tube length. And so any notes you can play, you can always swap the 1 and 2. Or if you have the ability to swap a 1 and 2 for 3. It will always, note always works out. Cool trumpet playing facts for you all. But yeah, and it turned out, basically, I'm losing exactly the train of thought of what I was going to say, but yeah, it turned out that actually what I really just needed to do was reset my expectations for myself. And that by resetting my expectations, it suddenly went from, oh yeah, I know, it's the second time I've actually tried to discuss this. Yeah, what happens is on the trumpet, the higher you go, the closer notes get together, basically. Because there's physics behind it, but basically you end up having more weight. The higher you get, the more notes, the more fingerings overlap, basically. Yeah, there are analogies I can use to describe it, but it's okay. Actually, simplest way I can say is that going up 1 octave in music is doubling frequency. When you play a trumpet, and actually when you play any instrument, it depends how you play it, you go upwards in multiples of some base frequency. And so what happens with the trumpet is initially you play it at you hit 1 note, you get 1 note at that particular frequency, and then the next time you'll double that, and so you'll be an octave up. The time after, though, you'll be at 3 times, but the next octave is, well, it's double the previous octave, so the next octave is at 4 times your initial height, but now you're at 3 times the initial pitch. So that's somewhere in between the 2 octaves. In the case of trumpet, that 3 times the initial pitch is a G above middle C. That is trumpet middle C. I am on the wrong path for doing this efficiently. But that's fine. That's why I do these talking things during hardcore LU runs, because the early game doesn't matter. Late game, I should probably not be talking about this, and hopefully will not be, if we're to actually have a chance. But yeah, and so what it turns out is that, yeah, the higher you go up on trumpet, the more ways there are of playing any individual note. And that makes things that makes it basically, you've got to rely on your lips significantly more, and kind of on hearing which note in your head, already hearing in your head which note you're going to hit. You need to be able to, that's kind of, it's kind of being able to put your lips the correct distance together can very, very often be a case of just knowing, just having a really, really clear idea in your head of what pitch you're actually going for. There is an extent to which it just depends on strength, lip strength, but yeah, it is also largely, in order to hit the correct one, you need to just be very precise with how hard you're pushing your lips together. And basically, the higher you get, the more precise you have to be. And what this means is the higher you get, basically, if you're someone like me, who for years was good at playing high notes, what was the one thing I figured I'm not going to be amazing in solos, I'm not a great jazz player. So what's the one thing I can bring to a solo? I can bring pitch. But the thing is, the higher you go, the harder it is to pitch to hit the note you're intending on hitting. It's far easier to put down like a correct series of fingers for a note than it is to put your lips together like the correct amount, especially, well, if you're just going for a note you can hear in your head, it's fine. But if you're utterly terrified and your mind's gone blank and you just need something to play, it's always a lot easier to just say, oh, okay, any one of these finger combinations gives me a correct note. Let's just play one of those. That's always going to be a lot easier. Just thinking about something later on in the game I'm going to have to prepare for. But yeah, and so me now trying to relearn, I've realised, wait a second, my high notes are good, and and the way I relearnt that was by playing, was by trying to learn to solo. But of course, as I'm trying to learn to solo, what happens? Well, of course, in order to teach you to solo, they're kind of initially like, okay, just very much get used to the feel of it. I watched a brilliant YouTube video, which really went through it, and it was kind of like, okay, here are some things you can be thinking about whilst you solo. Here's a scale, and what you realise when you start trying to play that scale is, wait a second, any note you hit with these series of fingerings is a part of that scale. Any note you can play with that series of fingerings, if you're down in the lower register, that's doable. It will sound all right. And so actually, when they were just trying to like build up the confidence, and when this tutorial was like trying to get you started and trying to get you used to how you do this, they were like, okay, just slowly build up. Just, start playing things, see that actually, okay, you can build structure into these things, but even playing more or less random... Wow. But even playing more or less random notes, just by going for the fingerings, you can still get something that sounds pretty good. And what that, of course, meant is that I had to play in a lower register. And what me playing in a lower register meant was, wait a second, I now actually have to get better at these lower notes, which are these things which were the thing that I'd been feeling less confident on. But best of all, the thing I'd been less confident on was my fluency with playing them. And what's kind of learning to play a jazz solo about if it's not about kind of fluency moving between them? And so I started a little while back being like, oh no, this is something I'm not looking forward to. This is something in which I'm not confident in my ability. I'm concerned. Okay, no, I do have firecrackers. I wasn't paying attention to where they spawned. Okay, one of them's over there. So the only way I have of aggroing just one is running over here. I don't know where the other is, though, to know if this will work, but regardless, I should now. Great. Okay. Let's give this a try. I don't hear anything, that's a good sign. Okay. So the aim with this is very much just aggro one at a time. Brilliant, that was the aim. Okay, and now I just go in and hope the other doesn't see me, and quickly power up, because I wasn't actually paying much attention to my health. I was paying more attention to where the other one was. Yeah, okay, so these first two, as long as only two, and like repeatedly two have only been spawning in the next round, which, like, I'm confident as long as only two spawn. Oh, I should rotate around here, because in a recent update, the orientation it attacked seemed to change. And this means that the rockets raining down from above, the easiest safe spot is now on this side. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting story that people might, well, yeah, the people might find helpful, I guess. Because this was something that I was really, really upset about. This fact that the trumpet, which was a huge part of my life over several years, I now cannot play. And yeah, it turned out that mostly just by changing what I was trying to do, something that still required the trumpet, but where like the expectations were very, very different. and where I was significantly worse at them made things a lot easier. I don't know. Maybe people find that interesting, maybe not. Either way, I'm sure you could have worked out where I was going with this about 5 minutes ago. When I started mentioning the jazz, but that's the downside of me, yeah, doing something else whilst I do this. I'm still not fluent enough in. Okay, we're getting 3. One of them will be aggroed on me as of the start. Don't know if the second one will. Do I hope that the second one wasn't? And try and go for it. I think I only see one there. Is that the same one around that corner? It's okay, it looks like it. As long as none of them run over, we're fine. Okay, the second one ran over, that's fine. That was not a great play by me, but it's fine. This is the first time I've, I think anyway, probably is the first time I've fought off 3 spiderlings without requiring any firecrackers. I wonder if one of the things that makes this harder, makes trying to do discussions as harder, is no feedback. I wonder if maybe I should stream things like this. Because what happens is I end up retreading ground a lot of the time, kind of over and over again. Because I wasn't 100% certain if I phrased myself correctly, or I think I could phrase it better, and so I'd go back and say it again. So I was, for instance, a second ago, tempted to more or less go back through the point I was making. I think largely because as well, I get distracted partway through because obviously I'm having to play something, and so I'm not convinced I did the point I was making justice. Whereas if there's chat and if there are other people, you can... Sorry, that may sound like chat and not other people. Then again, chat are the same one spreading the rumour that I'm a robot, so you know what, I don't care if there's a rumour going around that you guys don't count as people. Yeah, maybe that'll be an idea of something to do at some point. Actually do one of these on stream. I'm playing this risky. Really risky. Really, really risky. I would say I'm playing this risque. I really hope I don't die now. It'd be a really, really awkward way to die, having literally acknowledged how stupidly I was playing it. I felt somewhat confident I wouldn't. Like, the attack that could have killed me is relatively rare, and like I had the thing coming up, but it could still have happened. I could still have lost it there. But yeah, I'm pleased to say that I'm still not playing the trumpet much during the week, but I now try and make sure that for a good couple of hours every weekend, I now try and play. And I am definitely happier for it. Oh, and also, just to prove quintuple F player correct, I know I previously discussed our discussion that we'd had in the comment section about friendships and about whether or not it was possible to have a relationship in your life that does not make you stressed. One quite interesting thing is that the message I received a minute ago was from my one friend who was my kind of example for someone who, okay, probably because during COVID, like we'd become very close, but we weren't involved in one another's day-to-day lives. That perhaps I was less stressed for that reason, or that we hadn't as much stress. It was also kind of concluded that actually no, the friendship had stressed me out. But just to prove player right, when I headed off a minute ago, it was a message from them, and I'm hoping they are. I'm currently hoping they're all right. I'm not prioritising doing this over talking to them. They said they were going to think, contemplate, introspect for a bit, which is something I can get behind, because I am a master introspector. I think that is a fair assessment of who I am in general in life. But anyway, yes, it was just to prove player correct that actually, given enough time, any relationship where you truly care about the person will cause you stress, because given enough time, eventually stressful circumstances for them will arise, because such is the nature of life. I guess in theory they don't have to, but realistically they almost always will. And realistically also, stress is a scale. So, like, well, okay, maybe at some point it does become quantized in very, very small levels of stress, but I don't think most people are operating at low enough, like their entire life is inducing low enough levels of stress that that quantization becomes important, so they can say they truly are experiencing no stress, or a friendship with someone is not stressing them out at all. And yeah, for those who don't know, the conclusion to that discussion was that actually, yeah, probably, I argued that it was maybe a depressing thought, that so the discussion was drawing a connection between jobs and relationships, and both of them causing stress if you care about them, and that kind of being a function of caring about them. And I said I kind of hoped that actually relationships, it was possible to deeply care for someone and not have that generate stress. And I guess I feel the type of stress I was discussing, actually. I think this is an interesting question. I feel the type of stress I was discussing was different as well. I wonder if that's the reason the player and I were initially disagreeing on that, if it was that I was using a different definition of stress. For stress as a definition, player's definitely correct. I'm wondering if what I really meant was some sort of stress about oneself not being enough. Because I think personal stress where it very definitely relates to you as a person. Sorry, that now sounds confusing and somewhat selfish. What you care about this person is you only care about them for yourself. That sounds odd. What I more mean is when someone feels they're not enough for whatever reason, and I don't think that needs to be a case that in any relationship. I say relationship a lot. I know people often use that to mean romantic relationship. I do genuinely just mean any kind of friendship. Because honestly, I am of the opinion that a lot of the paradigms that come into play with romantic relationships are very, very similar to those that come into play with friendships. I don't think there is. There is obviously a certain level of romantic attraction that is required, but I I don't believe the dynamics necessarily have to be that different. I believe almost all of the time they are. But I believe the like underlying central dynamics of both hold true for both friendships and romantic relationships, and I think most relationships in general, even be it just acquaintances, I think they all run off the same thing. And that's the evolutionary desire to trust and be trusted, I guess, I would argue. And that, in turn, is to get the most food. It's a discussion I had with a friend a while back who was having a little bit of difficulty because and this is a different Christian friend to the one I've mentioned previously, and kind of a very different belief structure, but he was considering, yeah, what, like, can people be truly altruistic? Like, because as a good scientist, he was kind of like, well, actually, I was just watching a video on the, I think I actually sent something. I think it was my fault. For those of you who don't know the YouTube channel Primer, they are a really good biology YouTube channel, particularly evolutionary biology. I'm not a biologist. I still enjoy it. I recommend taking a look at their stuff. They've got lots of blob people and they do simulations, and it's really cool. And I find it interesting because, yeah, it's discussing how particular traits can arise, and one of the traits they discussed in the video is the evolution of altruism. And there's a question. Wait a second. Evolution is fundamentally selfish. Altruism, I mean, literally is the antonym of selfishness. But does that mean that fundamentally, when someone's being altruistic, they're just being selfish? And my friend had a bit of difficulty with that concept, because that seems like a really, really depressing thing. And honestly, it can be, I guess, if you look at it that way. But okay, so the reason why that would be so depressing is, does that mean we're all just, like, it's all just a trick? Anyone who's altruistic is just doing it because they know they're getting something out, or they're kind of, if you like someone, that just means that they've been evolutionary programmed to manipulate you. Is that what that means? Because that, suddenly my friendships seem to be worth a whole lot less. Like, it seems like quite a scary thing. And yeah, it is quite a scary thing, and we were having a discussion about it, and I guess to me, to some extent, maybe this is a reason why actually people always say that, yeah, or it's I say people always say it now. It's not a thing people always say. It is a common cliche that is said about science, that it takes like the love out of things, or like it claims love doesn't exist. And it's like, no, it doesn't. There's an amazing quote from Tim Minchin that is, I'm gonna try and quote the segment off the top of my head because I've listened to it enough times, and Tim Minchin's explained to someone why he doesn't believe in God, and it's something lines of, well, I tend to live my life believing if I believe in something, if I have evidence for it. And the person turns to him and says, well, but do you believe in love? And he looks at them and says, like, yeah, I believe in love. I think I believe in love. I think I love. I think I am loved. Yeah, I'd say I believe in it. The guy's like, aha! But you don't have any evidence for love, do you? And the the punchline to this joke is Tim just turns back and says, I think I do. I hope I do. Because love without evidence. That's stalking. And yeah, but that's kind of, I bring that up because it's kind of a concerning proposition, right? Because what if all of our relationships, well, evolution seems to be taking all of the positivity out of them, like they're just something we're programmed to do. And that's a scary concept for me. And that's as the person who was the one who accidentally persuaded my friend of that. And hadn't really considered it myself. And it's like, this is concerning. And I guess the point is that obviously there are 100 religious reasons to, depending on your particular brand of religion, you may or may not agree. You may not agree with this, and it's a brilliant place for a god to come in because I'm going to revert to Christianity here because it's the religion about which I have the most information, but we're all made in God's image. God is defined as more or less being this omnibenevolent, all-loving, all-caring being. So it makes a huge amount of sense that obviously we would deeply experience love, we would care for other people because we're made in God's image. And in fact, in Genesis, it mentions that we have some sense of stewardship over the earth, in that it is to some extent our, not merely, I'm trying to remember my one friend's, a different friend now, interpretation of this. I don't remember exactly what he believed, but it was, we have to some extent a duty to care for the earth. Or we are to some extent asked to try and safeguard it. And I shouldn't be in an old forest right now, I should be in Pet Cove. And so perhaps you can get it from there, but what this really did was really did for me was kind of what I really came away from this thinking was actually, what do my friendships mean? And I think you can look at it from the perspective of evolution, but I can also look at it from another perspective, which is, I can look at it from the perspective of, okay, everyone is trying to emotionally manipulate me, but let's look at that the other way around. That means I'm trying to emotionally manipulate everyone else. Do I feel like I'm trying to emotionally manipulate everyone else? I mean, not really. I feel like I do genuinely care for my friends. And I think that is arguably, evolution could be seen to make friendship into a selfish necessity. And from the perspective of our DNA, I think it is. But that doesn't mean it has to be from our perspective. I'd personally argue that I do feel a deep level of care for my friends. And that may be just due to my gene's selfish desire to reproduce, but that doesn't mean I don't feel it. That doesn't mean I don't genuinely care about them. And sure, this came about due to a random process that preferred things that could replicate. And I can sit there and be like, but I can sit there and be like, well, actually, if it came about through a random process selecting things that could replicate, then what does it mean to be selfish in the first place? Like, at that point, we don't have consciousness, because, like, we've kind of just assumed we're just stuff that can replicate, and obviously consciousness is something we definitely do experience, and it's an emergent phenomenon. Something that we don't seem to observe on a small scale. It certainly does not express itself in a way in which we can notice on a small scale. But it is something which we notice on a big scale. And so, like, the universe, and particular evolution, is, well, by its very definition, full of emergent phenomenon. That's just me making up for my previous time. I mucked up and had to double-click one of them, but Yeah, the universe is full of emergent phenomena, and discussing having the notion that we're all being emotionally manipulated by selfishness is already assuming, like, that is assuming some level of we have our experience of the universe, whether or not the phenomenon is what's the phenomenon is in and of itself, we don't know, but our experience of it definitely is some sort of emergent phenomenon. And if we go back to the simple side of it, then yeah, of course we don't experience. Like, if we go to the side of it that says we're being selfish, well, then honestly we don't have the consciousness. If we are just being friends with someone for the sake of surviving that little bit longer, then, well, that same argument suggests we're not conscious to begin with. Since we are conscious to begin with, I think it's safe to say that, okay, we may have been programmed to behave in a certain way by evolution, but that doesn't mean that our experiences are without meaning. I think our experiences are still deeply meaningful. Because I have to. Because I've been evolutionarily programmed to believe that. But at some point I've got to accept that, yeah, I've been evolutionarily programmed to believe certain things. I still do believe them. And there's a whole question of free will within all of this. There's an argument. I've seen some stuff recently when looking up papers for something for a video I was going to make for the physics channel that I recently set up, the Veritasium contest. I stumbled across a ton of papers saying that consciousness is Turing incomplete. Not 100% certain, or is consciousness like has the halting problem or something like that. I don't know. I didn't read the papers. I don't know exactly what arguments they were making. Maybe they were arguing it was non-computable. I don't know. I mean, I'd argue it definitely is computable because I'd argue we are effectively some sort of Turing machine, or at least there was no evidence, to my knowledge, to suggest that consciousness is not classical, and the universe's evolution can be predicted in a classical Turing machine because the universe is itself, in some sense, a classical Turing machine. I believe it can be argued. I am no expert in this field. Or I believe that at least the universe can be approximated by a classical Turing machine. Or the classical universe can be approximated by a classical Turing machine. There we are. I say classical Turing machine. I don't need to say classical Turing machine. I just need to say Turing machine. I say classical because there are extensions to Turing machines that, for instance, include quantum mechanics. But those are no longer Turing machines. The definition of a Turing machine is what I was calling there a classical Turing machine. But yeah, there are some thoughts for you. It was an interesting thing to think about because one doesn't like to have all of one's experiences derived from pure selfishness, but I think the point is to distance ourself from the processes that make us up. Like, obviously, we are completely made up by these processes, and we can't get away from that, but I'm playing Lego Universe, and my experience of playing Lego Universe is not directly an experience of the transistors. Or I'm not directly experiencing all the transistors that go into making this game. I'm not even experiencing all the pixels that go into making this screen. And that's, I guess, the line I would draw. This is why I like hardcore runs, because I can talk about stuff. I still get distracted amongst stuff. I lose my train of thought whilst I'm doing this, because that's honestly one thing I find surprisingly difficult. I find it quite easy to talk about what's going on in the game at any moment in time, but I feel, rightly or wrongly, I largely feel that I need to... Well, I don't know. I feel part of what makes me me is providing random additional commentary. That was the correct word. Like, I feel largely the reason I enjoy doing this is because I do just get to talk about stuff I'd like to talk about. And if I were just doing a standard, come on guys, let's run and do this challenge. I mean, for starters, I would not be able to do that because I've done 30. Did I name this character 32? I hope I didn't. This is 33. Because I've done 33 of these challenges, and I don't think I'd be able to persuade you guys that I was still had the childlike wonder of having done it for the first time, because, I mean, obviously you've seen me do it many, many more times. Again, not to devalue my enjoyment of it, but I don't think anyone could act sufficiently well of justice. Or maybe they could. I am certainly not that person, and I'm not doing this because I want to act. I genuinely found at one point that I didn't realise this, but a YouTuber I watched on a gaming channel, they were literally just a paid actor. Every single video they did was scripted. And I knew about isolated incidents. I'd thought about this, and I knew of isolated instances of this occurring. Instances, rather than incidents. Isolated instances of this occurring where, like, vloggers were actually paid actors. And I knew that, but I did not expect that a channel I was watching would be... It was something that kind of... something that's the case of someone else, and it was like, that was actually quite a shock. I can clarify for you guys, by the way, not a paid actor. Although if someone wants to pay me as an actor, I mean, feel free. But you've heard how much difficulty I have keeping a train of thought. Actually, in fairness, I'm all right when I have a script. And I guess most actors do. But yes, you get my point anyway. Yeah, that was something interesting that I hadn't considered. And yes, that is obviously very much not going to be me and not going to be this channel. I'm not saying anything against enjoying those channels. I mean, arguably it's better. Or arguably, you guys should enjoy channels by paid actors more than you enjoy mine, because, I mean, if you don't, what are the scriptwriters and actors doing? Like, they definitely should be more engaging than this, because this is being done by a guy in this uni room. Like, really, it should be better. Going to quickly accept this mission. I seem to remember I don't need to worry too much about that, but 1,000 coins is nothing to be sniffed at. That's an entire spring shoe. Actually, no, that's an entire pair of spring shoes. Shame. I totally forgot. The mission I just handed in was an entire spring shoe. That was 500 coins. This is 2 spring shoes. You actually get a complete pair. And when I say 2 spring shoes, I don't mean 2 pairs of spring shoes. I mean one single item, but one single item is 2 spring shoes. What am I doing? Hailstorm. Let's go in the correct direction then. It's always advantageous. But yeah, I find it an interesting question of, I guess evolution in particular deeply interests me because it is to some extent a belief. It is one that has some experimental evidence to back it up, but it's still a belief. I can give you some good statistics on like the probability evolution is to be correct. But in order to give you those statistics, I have to rule out God, and I have no way of knowing how probable God is, because how do you work out a probability for something that defies understanding? Like, how can I say how probable something? I have no way of reasoning why it should exist or how it would exist. How can I give that a probability of being true? But anyway, the best I can say is Occam's razor for me. And Occam's razor, it should be argued, is a completely subjective thing. Occam's razor for me does not lead me towards God. It leads me towards evolution, and therefore, evolution interests me because it, in many ways, for me, it defines my understanding of who and what I am. And, well, okay, so this is a thing I find interesting. Regardless of whether or not evolution's correct, I think I like having an explanation for my existence and my perception of the world in any basis for thought. I like evolution because evolution relies on the classical world around us, and as long as a particular train of thought leaves probabilities somewhat random, evolution is still a predicted phenomenon. But it doesn't mean that the fact that evolution is a predicted phenomenon in most religions doesn't mean that was how humans were formed, and it doesn't mean that God didn't have a guiding hand in evolution. I'd say if a God wanted to be involved with the universe in a way that was subtle for whatever reason, then a great way of having really subtle miracles would be random numbers. Just affect a random number in a particular way. Bingo. Obviously not in the Bruce Almighty way of affecting random numbers, which is just make everyone win the lottery simultaneously. I also don't buy that scene, because I don't think I would pray to God to win the lottery. Well, I think I'd be more specific than to say win the lottery, because if I were going to, so for those who don't know, there's a scene. Is this a spoiler? I don't feel it's a spoiler when the literal name of the film is Bruce Almighty. You probably have some idea what's going to go on. If you're not interested, or if you're concerned about spoilers, warning: this is a spoiler for the film Bruce Almighty. That Bruce becomes Almighty. In some sense, I guess. But anyway, yeah. Spoiler alert out of the way. I guess skip ahead 20 seconds if you're not interested in it. Bruce is answering email prayers from everyone, and he makes many people simultaneously. He just accepts all of the prayers, and many people simultaneously win the lottery, and all get like £20. And I think I'd specify because you can win £20 in the lottery normally. I think I would specify I want to win £1 million in the lottery, because If you just say, I want my numbers to come up in the lottery, they could, but there are loads of different amounts of money you can make in the lottery. I'm also not explicitly condoning gambling. I would suggest... I would say... I don't have anything against gambling, per se. Like, as a recreation, but it's just very easy for it to become addictive. But, like... I was going to say alcohol is legal, but, I mean, again, I feel alcohol isn't, again, something I would encourage either. Try and come up with something that is addictive, but... and is perfectly fine. I feel that there are 100% examples of this. But none are spring to mind, so... Come up with an example of something that's addictive, but is perfectly allowable in today's society. Because I believe they exist, but... I'm fairly certain I've thought of loads in the past, but I don't remember any now, so let me know of any good ones you can think of. Also, arguably, the definition of addiction, somewhat arbitrary. Like, I feel a lot of what is classed as a dangerous addiction, I don't know. I feel there are probably other easier things. So, for instance, I'm fairly... Okay, this is supposition. I don't have any specific biological evidence to back this up, but I know I feel happy around people. And if I spend lots of time... Okay, let's say I've got a friend who comes down. They come and stay for a couple of days. I'm really happy for those couple of days. They leave and I'm a bit down. I'd argue that fulfills most definitions you could probably give of an addiction. So is it something that causes a change in the way you process information given to your body? Okay, that's actually arguably a drug. Something that changes the way your body processes information. But I mean, does something a friend around? Yes, definitely. Like, I'm happier. That changes the way I process information. I'm more likely to view the world in a positive light because of that. Are there... And I guess the other standard part of a definition of an addiction is... Well, twofold. Is there A, a compulsion to keep doing it? Yes, I like spending time with my friends. B, is there some sort of withdrawal when you don't have it? And yeah, there definitely is. There's sadness, or not necessarily acute sadness, but not being as happy. And I think if you were to plot on a graph, there's definitely, especially for like the day or so after, if you've spent a lot of time with someone and you've really been enjoying yourself, or doing anything where you're really enjoying yourself, when you stop, I think there's a definite subsidence. Well, you're not as happy. Okay, we are actually in Nile Forest, and I should begin to start paying attention soon. Need some bananas later anyway. Wow, I did not get any imagination from that. Nice. Okay, I mean I did, but none I could use. And that's now. Could also have gone to that tiki torch. Don't know how much that would have given me. I didn't think... I kind of figured it wouldn't be much, but it may have been faster. Oops, that wasn't the right tab. Okay. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I find definitions. I find people are all too willing to throw around definitions with an arbitrary cut-off point. and I dislike it, because if you have definitions with an arbitrary cutoff point, okay, sure, that works, but, like, what did they... You can't say anything fundamental then, because someone else could pick another arbitrary cutoff point to make a completely different conclusion. Like, I argue conservationism is interesting in that regard, because by conserving the animals that are currently found on Earth, we are preventing the evolution of some future species. Does that mean, like, are we saying that the particular species we have now are somehow... Well, I feel the implication of that really is that the particular species we currently have are somehow more worthy of existing. Which is an interesting concept, because I don't think that's what anyone would argue they're saying when they say they support conservation. But it seems to be somewhat equivalent. Hey, we've got ourselves a grey kepi. The classic. And, like, personally, it's not like I'm saying as well that I don't agree with conservation. Like, I'm as torn as the next person when I see... So, okay, there are many reasons for conservation. Like, okay, we are... Well, I mean, even we are having a deleterious effect on this planet, we should stop, I think is honestly just too bristic of us. I'm not convinced that actually we are having... Like, I feel... Like, we definitely are having an impact on the planet. I do believe we are causing global warming. However, events happen all the time where species become extinct. I don't think we are causing loads of species to go extinct. And I'm not saying that those that go extinct, it's not saddening that they are, but it's an interesting thing that we're saying because they currently exist, they are worth more than that which might exist. Because it's not like, yeah, humans are doing loads of damage and causing lots and lots of suffering. Well, I guess that's the best argument, right, for conservation, which is that at least those things which don't exist are not currently experiencing suffering for their lack of existence. Whereas those things which do currently exist, if we don't clean up our act, we are causing a lot of suffering. And we are causing a lot of creatures that don't deserve it in any sense to suffer. And I don't think that is a good thing. And so that would be my argument for conservation. It's the active suffering we're causing rather than the risk of species going extinct. Because oh no. Oh no, this isn't good. I don't have a backup plan for this. Oh no. Okay, for those who don't know why I suddenly got very concerned, and suddenly, yeah, wasn't particularly pleased, it's the same reason that I just used a hardtack biscuit. And it's the fact that I expected around that corner, yes, that was what I wanted to attack, I expected around that corner to see a stroming ape. I did not see a stroming ape. What that means is that the stroming ape is a... I actually need to be careful here. That means that the stroming ape is around this corner. And that spawned on top of a quick build that I need to use. That was not what I meant to equip. That was actually quite funny. It's spawned on top of a quick build that I need to use to get a heart flag. You can actually see the quick build underneath it. I don't have any way of fighting that at the moment. I'm also interested in seeing when this runs out. Okay, what I can do And what I will do is go past as quickly as I can. Hope that I don't get hit by the rock. I could have been more careful, but there wasn't much need to. That one, there are places where I have been hit by that boulder before, but that one is, I don't know how I've managed to get hit by that. It's kind of hard to. For now, I'm going to do other things in this area. You know what I didn't do? Okay, well, that's fine, actually. So yeah, I haven't been paying much attention to precisely the order I've been doing things in the run, so I'm not... I don't think I want to... Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go do other stuff in the run, because there's other necessary stuff I need to do in this run. Actually, one of the things is to fight an admiral. Let's do that now. Basically, I don't want to fight an ape. And I didn't bring my spring shoes, so I can't do the post-ape area over there. Or I can do that. I do have a method, but I don't feel secure in that method. So I'm not going to do it for now. Thank you. That was what I wanted. And look, me playing it safe. Admirals, easy game. So yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to... the quest chain will send me over to Forbidden Valley. I'll do that. Hopefully this server will restart in that time, and hopefully the ape will spawn in the other spot when we come back and reload the server. I believe the server goes down after like 15 minutes, something like that. But the thing is, I can go to Crooks, etc. I'm like getting the extra hearts is something it's nice to have before Crooks, but I'm confident I can get through Forbidden Valley. Or I'm confident I can do enough of Forbidden Valley to get to Crooks. Basically, I'm confident I can fill 15 minutes. I'm hoping I can fill like half an hour, because I'm not actually certain how long it takes for the server to restart. And I also can't guarantee that no one's on here. I suspect I would have seen them if they were, but there's always a chance someone's racing. Come on, Pirate Picnic Basket, give me another hardtack. Tough buff sauce? Okay, okay, I can see why that might sound like I were a canned pre-prepared YouTube rather than the fact that I can't control what drops into you. Tough buff sauce is a really nice find, because that is only obtainable from Kamikaze, I believe. I'm just going to check that quickly. I literally have done this before. /item tough buff sauce. Where can I buy this? Can buy it from Kamikaze Gear Vendor, yeah. I can get them for achievement in Forbidden Valley, and I can get them in Pet Cove. I'm not certain if that's a mission. I think that is. So yeah. Oh, but it also says it gives 0 of them, so I don't know what to make of that. It says you get them for this particular mission, and then next to the number of how many you get, it does say 0. So, but But yeah, I have no real reason to go back to non-forest with half flags, and for now, I think it might be a nice idea to go to Forbidden Valley. I can pick up some spring shoes whilst I'm in Nexus Tower, and see what I can do about getting the heart flags. I'm not convinced I'll be able to get all of them. There's one in particular that I'm really scared of. It's really risky. I will definitely need to use the tough buff source for it. I will probably... I want to put out the... I want to get the Firefighter achievement as well, because I want to get the shield, the potion of shielding, shield you from 10 damage, because the place I want to go, there's a huge risk of lots and lots of me getting swarmed by Maelstrom Horsemen, and Maelstrom Horsemen are the possibly worst thing to get swarmed by, I would say. Because as long as you've got one, as long as you know exactly what it's going to do at all times, it's perfectly fine. Because, yes, they have one attack that's dangerous, but it's one attack. You know when they're going to do it. Their attack cycle is really, really simple. Unfortunately, when you have lots of them, you've got to keep track of all their attack cycles simultaneously, and you might not be in a position to set them all to have the attack cycle in time with one another. And so what might happen is you might get stunned by one of their stun attacks and then have another run up to you and use their ranged attack. Now, if they use their ranged attack from range, that's fine. That's fine. You can handle that quite easily. There'll be 3 damage. You've just been knocked down. That did 2 damage. It's not... Maybe it only does 1. Actually, I don't remember. It's not great, but you're still alive. If you've got tough buff source active, then you've had like 3 damage done to you. That's fine. You've got a shielding up as well. Wow, you're doing well. No, the real issue comes in when they attack with all 3. If they run up close to you and deal damage to you with all 3 projectiles simultaneously. Each one of those does 3 damage. That's 9 damage you've just taken. You can tank that with... well, not with the health I have at the moment. With the health I have from Forbidden Valley... With the health I can get from Forbidden Valley and the health I currently... and the health I should by this point have gotten... Sorry, I'm not paying much attention to where I'm going. The health I should have gotten by this point in Gnarled Forest, that would be doable. That would be doable to tank it with tough buff source. Because what's really nice about 3 projectiles hitting you at once is each of them only does 3 damage. Tough buff source will reduce that actually more than it would normally. More than it would if it were a single 9 damage projectile. However, it's still not something you want to be caught in the middle of, and I'm fairly certain I will get caught in the middle of it if I go there. So I'm not hugely looking forward to that. Is there anything else I want to buy from Olivia? Let's think there is. I want to buy some... Do I want to go for the heart flags in Crux Prime? The thing is, I'm still not convinced I can get them all. I think I need more imagination than I have to do it. I'm certainly don't think I'm going to go for them on one of these runs. My hardcore you run just yet. I'd want to practice it first. That's a good amount of money I got from that. Yeah, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, but fortunately I'm still doing the right thing anyway. That's always good to see. But yeah, there are lots of other things I could do, lots of other places I can go. Yeah, but yeah, so like the aim of this run really would be to be in a place where I've done all the risky stuff where I would reasonably expect it to die by falling to my death. And to have money, to have access, and to have a good supply of tough buff source, basically. Tough buff source, like maybe barbecue chicken wings. Arguably hardtack biscuits might be better. I think I prefer them because they just have such a long uptime. Like, their uptime might be equal to their cooldown. I don't actually know. But regardless, their uptime makes them lovely. And so, yeah, hardtack biscuits, that gets me from potentially 7 health if I can pull off both Forbidden Valley and Gnarled Forest. This wasn't the place I meant to go. If I can pull off both Forbidden Valley and Gnarled Forest, that can get me 7 health, tough buff source. Helps, not by a calculable amount, because it depends what you're being attacked by. I mean, it is calculable if you know what you're being attacked by, and you know how it's dealing damage to you, but anyway. And the... I can barely remember how to get to Starbase, honestly. And like having shields of... So yeah, I can get up to 9 HP then. I could arguably get up to 10 if Crux Prime were doable. Well, not arguably. I could get up to 10 if Crux Prime were doable. I'm not convinced it is. Great. I should have gotten 1 extra spring shoe. Because I'm fairly convinced I can do that using spring shoes. Because I think they do damage high enough up. But I didn't get one. I'll do Forbidden Valley for now. I'll need to come back to Nexus. Well, I will go back to Nexus Tower to just complete the mission from Duke X Time. I'm not certain I'll go to Crux Prime just yet. I'm kind of taking it quite slow on this character. Which I don't think is a bad thing. There's also a fair chance I won't be alive. And the run won't be alive. I hope I probably will be. I hope that's not going to be correlated in that sense. And where's... Oh, come on. Okay. This is why I should not talk and play OU at the same time. Okay, I didn't get this one, but that's not the last flag I didn't get. I also didn't get the second flag in Brick Annex, because I'm an idiot. Okay, there I didn't have speed, which is why I failed to get that to. Honestly, I never would have assumed this was a doable jump, aside from the fact that I was trying to get onto that ledge. That ledge you can't get onto, but turns out you can get the backpack flag. For anyone wondering, you can build the quick build. That is implemented in DLU. However, I would say I was going to jokingly say I like to flex. However, it's not even a flex, honestly, at the stage where I repeatedly fail it multiple times in a row. That really, really ceases to become a flex. Or ceases to be one. It didn't work. This wasn't what I meant to do. Again, with me not paying attention because I'm trying to talk at the same time. It's not so... It genuinely was not something I thought would be an issue, and it's not an issue I feel I really have with other people, but then again, I feel we don't really get into deep topics with other people that much. Certainly not on stream. I do in real life, but not on stream, I don't. I have a tendency to feel I need to talk about OU, which is wrong, because like the whole reason I set up this channel was so that I didn't need to feel obligated to always be bringing OU content, and honestly, I didn't intend to do as much OU content on this channel as I have been, or as much like targeted at discussing OU stuff. I had a very fun experience last night. It was 1:55 in the morning, and I wake up because I hear people moving around outside, or I hear motion. I hate the blowing out noise there. Can I just say, that is the creepiest noise, and it genuinely jump scares me every time. That was an email for me. No, no one has just received an email on Outlook. Oh, legend. I just got some advice on how to get a face mask from the department I'm working in from a friend. That's a legend. Forget what it was I'm talking about, which was I know the point I was making shortly before, so I guess case in point. Oh yeah. Yeah, so I hear someone moving around outside, and it's kind of a little bit like there's the bathroom, toilet directly outside my room. Okay, it's late, but come on, we're uni students. It's not. No time is kind of too late for someone to be moving around doing that. Like, my sleep schedule's awful, I know, so I shouldn't assume it no one else's is. But yeah, I really should just go the safe route there. Or either of the safer routes, rather than the stupid one I just did. But yeah, I'm lying in bed and hearing this, and I'm like, okay, well, actually, no. I was thinking something about Turing completeness and programming at the time. I remember thinking that someone should just set up a programming language to do something so it would make everything so much easier. That was actually, I was kind of, you know, when you're still partially awake, partially asleep. I was thinking definitely something should just have a programming language set up for it, because that would make everything so much easier. That was what was going through my mind at that particular moment in time. But yeah, and then I get some guy knocking at my door. Or I get some knocking at the door, and I'm kind of like, is that knocking at my door? Or is that just someone, like, I don't know, like bumping? Because it was only 2 knocks. Is that just someone bumping into the door to the kitchen or something? I don't know. I'm going to assume it's not me. Then I hear it again. But they're really quiet knocks as well. They're like, okay, they're not really quiet, but they're not like loud knocks, like if I were really concerned someone would hear me. Okay, there are only 2 there, so go back to sleep, or kind of lie back down. I assume they're not for me. A little bit of a delay, long enough for me to assume they weren't for me, and then a few seconds later. A few seconds after, I've just decided, okay, they probably weren't for me. There are more knocks at the door. Okay, what? But there's nothing else. There's no follow-up. Okay, maybe they'll just. There's no reason I should be awake. Maybe whoever it is will just assume I'm asleep. Let's just go for that. 30 seconds later, 2 more knocks. Also, can I just say, if you're knocking at my door, please pick a delay. Either wait a couple of minutes or do it like after 10 seconds. Don't wait 30 seconds. It's just like, it's long enough for me to think, okay, I was imagining it, or maybe it was just they were doing something in the kitchen that required them hitting something twice. I don't know. Eventually I'm like, what? A somewhat sleepy ninja noise, and I get no response, and I'm like, well, that can't be for me, right? I've just like checked whether or not they were talking to me, and I got no response, like, and then the knocking comes again, and so I'm like, okay, I get up, get out of bed, get my mask on, go to the door, and a guy I play frisbee with, a guy in our frisbee team, standing there. And, okay, there is context, he does live in the same building. Is also, I think, the only other person in my household who's here at the moment. But it's certainly, it was not what I was, not what I was expecting. And he looked. I'm kind of like, yeah. Because I'm at this stage. I'm at this stage significantly more awake. I'm playing this as I'm not, but like no, I was at this stage awake enough to be talking, to be cognizant, to have a conversation. Possibly not a hugely mentally involved one, but some conversation. And it's like, do you know how to get the light in the kitchen to stay on? I'm sitting there like, what? It is 2 in the morning. Why are you asking me how to get the light in our kitchen to stay on? I don't say any of this, though. And I find it hilarious, because I don't say any of this, and this guy just plays it off. Or doesn't play it off, but he just... There is no indication that I would have been asleep or that it was 2 a.m. And it was hilarious. Because it was just like, this... I was low-key being gaslit into believing that it wasn't 2 a.m. and it was like a reasonable hour, because this guy was just like, yeah. Oh, and also you left the hob on. And I'm like, I didn't make dinner on the hob today. Definitely didn't leave the hob on. It's just like, what? This is the strangest interaction I've had in a little while. It's the point where I'm low-key being convinced just by this guy's calmness that it's like a reasonable time. I really hope that's not him outside. It's just a very interesting interaction. That would be so awkward. Just a very interesting interaction that I wasn't expecting to have. Just paying insufficient attention. So there's a trick you can do when you have 2 Ronin next to one another, which is what I was trying to do there. I've only got 1 now. Ah, dang it. Too busy telling a story and being slightly concerned that this guy knew I was outing him. That strange interaction, and I'm going to keep playing. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go to sleep. But yeah, there's a thing you can do where you have two Ronin, and you may have noticed I was clicking on 2 Ronin to target between them. It's possible to keep 2 Ronin stun locked at once pretty safely. In terms of timing. However, it's quite often possible to get 2 Ronin like in a position similar to this, which I didn't manage to do it there again, but where you get them basically so they're overlapping one another. And because they're overlapping one another, you hit one, it knocks that one back. You hit the other, it knocks that one back. And you push them back repeatedly by small distances, but it means you keep splitting your targeting between the 2 of them. That's nice, I guess. You keep splitting your targeting between the 2 of them, and it means that you remain... Wow. It's not going well. And it means that you keep both of them stunned, and you don't need to do what I was doing before with clicking between the 2 of them to keep the targeting split. Unfortunately, it seems that's not as reliable a tactic as I'd hoped. Which I can live with. But it's a little bit annoying, and rip this run to that. Anyway, it's good because I'm slowly trying to regain control of my sleep cycle, and it is currently 11 o'clock. It's currently 2 o'clock. We're having time for another random conversation where I get... I don't know, it was the best interaction ever because there was no indication that like I might have just been woken up, and I found myself wondering by the end of this conversation, wait, have I been awake for the past several hours? Like, was I just, or did I just take a nap in the middle of the day and it's a perfectly reasonable time? It's just very funny. Anyway, yeah. I guess thank you all very much for watching. I enjoyed doing this, honestly. I enjoyed doing a kind of primarily just talking about random stuff thing. It's kind of a fun way of doing one of these. Thank you all very much for listening. I've been IntroValU. This has been played on DLU. And yeah, I'll see you around. Bye.